So what just happened with the Scotus, the ATF, the Ghost Guns, frame receivers, and FPC? We're going to break it all down right now because, as I'm sure you guys are aware, they ruled in favor at the Scotus for the ATF to basically make the rule enactable before the conclusion of the case. We're going to break all this down. I'm going to show you which Scotus is acted in which way and what this lines up for the future, because this is not over, but this is definitely a wet blanket as we push forward with our rights every single day. Now, everything will be linked in the description box below, and I can't wait to hear from you guys on this one. And please send this one out, because this is the information that we need to move forward amongst, to be honest, the disappointment that we got today. And of course, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn the notification bell on. We have got a lot of freedom to distribute, and this fight is just getting going, so let's get it. So my brothers and sisters, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to break down basically what occurred, where we're going, what the next steps are, the existing court dates that are already published, and then the SCOTUS actual justices, all right? So here we go. So from the source on the inside on this one, which has been pretty accurate up to date, up to the current date, oral arguments are set for September 7th in the 5th Circuit. So this is not a dead thing. The SCOTUS did come down and say, no, you can enact your rule, ATF, but the litigation still continues. That's still going on. It does suck because they get to enforce it. And we're going to get to the whole point of putting people out of business while you take your sweet A time litigating this. We'll get to that in a second. But right now, the oral arguments are scheduled for September 7th in front of the 5th Circuit Court of Appeals, the exact same Court of Appeals that handed them a backhand on multiple occasions. So while the ATF might have some relief right now, they're still in very unfriendly waters as they move forward with this. But let's continue. Let me show you the actual order, and then we're going to break it down because we know which justices went this way, and I'm going to show you which ones weren't a surprise. The application for stay presented to Justice Alito and by him referred to the court is granted. The June 30th, 2023 order and July 5, 2023 judgment of the United States District Court for the Northern District of Texas, case number whatever, insofar as they vacate the final rule of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosive, are stayed pending the disposition of the appeal in the United States Court of Appeals for the 5th Circuit. That's an important piece. And disposition of a petition for writ of certiorari, if such a writ is timely sought. Should certiorari be denied, this stay shall terminate automatically. In the event certiorari is granted, the stay shall terminate upon the sending down of the judgment of this court. Now, here's the actual justices who sided with us. You've got Thomas, Alito, Gorsuch, and Kavanaugh. Those are the ones that voted with us. Now, of course, the left judges aren't going to vote with us, so that's the big surprise. Excuse me, not the big surprise. The big surprise is who voted against us from the conservative side. It wasn't Justice John Roberts. He did vote against us, but that wasn't the surprise. The big surprise was ACB, Amy Coney Barrett. She came out and said, no, the state, we can have this rule in place while we litigate this further. So John Roberts has always put the legitimacy of the court in front of all of his voting decisions consistently through his entire career, which is why the left pushes so hard on the legitimacy angle, because they know they can sway votes that way. John Roberts completely let this one down. But Amy Coney Barrett was the big surprise because she came in, a Trump appointee, and she could have been the deciding factor that would have said, no, this vacature, no, it stays in place while you litigate this because you're infringing upon millions of people and existing businesses. You will put businesses out of business completely while you take your sweet A time doing this in the 5th Circuit Court of Appeals. Again, those are the ones that let us down. Amy Coney Barrett, which was a little bit of a disappointment, and John Roberts, which is a continuing disappointment. That one's not a surprise. But that's where we're at. So now, let me show you a few of the things from the SCOTUS blog, and everything's linked if you want, but it puts a really good cap on it. Supreme Court temporarily reinstates ban on ghost guns. We know that happened, but that's the article title. So here we go. The Supreme Court on Tuesday allowed the Biden administration to temporarily reinstate a rule by the ATF regulating ghost guns while a challenge to the rule continues in federal appeals court. In June, a federal judge in Fort Worth, Texas, had barred the ATF from enforcing the rule anywhere in the United States. Urging the justices to intervene, U.S. Solicitor General Elizabeth Prelogar had told the justices that the order by the U.S. District Judge Reed O'Connor was irreparably harming the public and the government by reopening the floodgates to tide of untraceable ghost guns flowing our nation's communities, which is a bunch of crap. Now, we know what happened. That's just the backstory if you weren't familiar. But now, here's where we're at with the actual votes, the 5th Circuit. This is the kind of way they phrase it. The vote was 5-4, with Justices Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, Neil Gorsuch, and Brett Kavanaugh indicating that they would have denied the government's request and allowed the ban on enforcement of the rule to continue. So that would have been a win for those individuals. The ATF issued the rule at the center of the dispute in 2022 to make clear that the federal laws govern the sale of firearms. We already know all of that part. But this is the big piece. Those individuals who are the people who would decide to take up the case or not take up the case, they voted no. So that's the important piece. We now have to contend with Amy Coney Barrett and Justice John Roberts if they decide to take this up at their level. Now that puts us where we're at. It's in the Fifth Circuit. Oral arguments are set for September 7th. So as we move forward in the Fifth Circuit, which has proven to be a non-favorable court for this type of infringement, it's going to continue until the Fifth Circuit comes down and I assume would follow the same path that they've been following and say it's unconstitutional. Well, then that puts the ATF in a position where they have to appeal to the court to take it up if they want to keep it in place. That's kind of where we're at right now. So that's the big piece. The ATF won in the fact that they get to enforce their rule while they get to litigate this entire thing, but they're still in very troubling waters. And for us, it's kind of a disappointment that the Scotus stuff, they're wishy-washy around this issue because it's pretty clear. Unless the only issue that they were concerned with was the overstating of the vacate order coming from the Fifth Circuit because that was outside of the administrative rules or whatever. That's the only thing that I can think would be a saving grace on this because I don't like this much. Anyway, let's continue because this is the part where the blog breaks it down a little bit better. The challengers defended O'Connor's decision to vacate the rule nationwide. They dismissed the Biden administration arguments against universal injunctions as policy concerns that cannot supplant Congress's decision to allow courts to vacate actions by agencies that exceed their authority. And I put that in there because it's the biggest crock of crap you've ever heard, and it's the biggest joke ever. The executive bureaucracy who superseded the separation of powers of Congress from the executive branch is now using that as an argument against the judicial for superseding their powers on the executive branch. In Tuesday's order, the justices granted the government's request to put O'Connor's decision on hold until its appeal in the Fifth Circuit and, if necessary, the Supreme Court is resolved. 4 members of the court's conservative bloc, Thomas, Alito, Gorsuch, and Kavanaugh, indicated that they would have rejected the government's request and allowed O'Connor's order to remain in place. They did not explain the reasons for their votes, and that's kind of where we're at. So while this is a wet blanket, it's a little bit of a kick in the nads in the short term, they're still in unfavorable waters. They still have to go through the appeals court. The only thing they won here is they get to enforce their rule as they're getting litigated, which is still crap. I'm not happy with it. But it's not like the Supreme Court said, you know what, ATF's within their constitutional bounds, because that's not what happened at all. They can enforce the rule while they continue litigation in an unfriendly court. And that's what I've got for you guys. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will see you on the next one. I'm Braden. See you later.